Hello from Skiathos, the Greek island where we're exploring the relationship between landscape, soulscape, and a creative life. This is an episode for anyone who feels stuck in a rut and uninspired with life. And we'll look at how entering into the gentle, welcoming, and at times challenging realm of myth, story, and enchantment can help us find ways out of that well-worn human complexity. And I'll offer some ideas about how that might work for you in your daily life. This isn't about escaping into some fairy tale world to hide from our problems, but engaging deeply with them to discover new, fruitful, and at times surprising ways forward. There's a wonderful children's picture book by Maurice Sendak. You may well know it. It's a classic called Where the Wild Things Are. You may have read it when you were little, or had it read to you, or read it to your own children or grandchildren perhaps. In the story, the boy, Max, is having quite a day of it, making mischief around the house as he's overwhelmed by restless energy. He gets sent to his room as punishment, and there his bedroom transforms into a space of adventure. The walls become the world all around. He sets sail to an island to meet the wild things and undergoes an experience of transformation. When he returns from his reveries, much more at peace, he finds his supper waiting for him, and it's still hot. Never really leaving his room, he entered the mythic space of dream and imagination, where the transformational story that he needed to experience unfolded. As with so many children's stories, there are important and profound truths for us here. That mythic space is a way to access deep inner wisdom. And there are ways for us to activate our imagination to enter that world of stories and myth that can bring peace, guidance, and transformation. Children are very often instinctively able to do this, but as we grow up and are pressed into moulds that the world makes for us, we can begin to lose our connection with that mythic way of being. So if your life feels a little flat at the moment, lacking in direction perhaps, or mired in the same old patterns of behaviour, or like Max in the story, you feel trapped, staring at the same four walls every day with a wild restlessness, you may need reminding that your life, your story, who you are, is remarkable beyond measure and full of inspirational potential. Awakening the mythic space, the story way of being, can be a very effective way of accessing the inner wisdom to help us to find a more rooted energy that will awaken us from the stupor of routine and beckon us forwards into new spaces of potential in our lives. Rather than a kind of daydreaming escape from our reality to make it more bearable, this is a very intentional and active entering into a space where we can be comforted, healed, and sometimes even challenged to receive the gift that we need at this point in our lives. Sometimes this may be a very gentle, soothing space, and at other times a much more direct and pointed shaking from our apathy. This inner space, soul space, dream space, call it whatever you like, knows what wisdom we need for us to flourish in our lives. Now, there are cultures and traditions across the world that have never lost touch with that connection to myth and story and are still enriched and informed by them. If you're fortunate enough to be in a space where you're able to engage with your rich heritage of myth, then that's really a wonderful thing. And before we go any further, one of the things I get asked about a lot is how this all relates to religion, specifically organised religions such as Christianity. Now, the discussion about the relationship between religion and spirituality is a whole series of episodes in its own right, and is much more nuanced than it's often characterised. Suffice to say, I do have a background in Christianity a while ago, although I've ventured into a different spiritual space these days. And my journey from Christian minister to communing with trees on a Greek island is quite a story, which, I may tell at some point. And if you'd be interested to hear it, then do let me know in the comments below. I've found that there are some people in the Christian church who can and do engage with this mythic space. and some who don't. Indeed, I work with people from diverse religious backgrounds, as well as those with no religious preference at all. And I do this in the soul accompaniment sessions that I offer. But anyway, what I'm talking about is a different thing to religious doctrine and belief. And it's perfectly feasible to engage with this from a religious tradition if that's where you find yourself in life at the moment. So yes, there are many indigenous cultures still working within this mythic space. But, perhaps like me, you don't have roots in such a heritage. I grew up in the leafy suburbs of South Manchester, very pleasant, but there was no rich tradition of the stories of the land for me to engage with as I grew up. No tales of gods and goddesses, tricksters and magic that flowed through the woodlands and hillsides. Instead, what I eventually realised after years of exploration is that even if the culture around us has disconnected from that mythic space of soul, the land still remembers. The world is enchanted and enchanting. All the spaces and landscapes around us are riddled with stories. The earth is pregnant with them, and they long to emerge through us. Now, if this awakens a longing, a stirring in your soul to seek those ways, or it's a restlessness that's been there for a while, maybe like Max in the story, you feel trapped in your situation in life and can sense a new energy trying to get out, but you're not quite sure what it might be or where it might take you. Let's explore together this pathway to re-enchantment. But first, some little health warnings. As I say, this is not an escape route from any problems and difficulties you may be facing. In fact, engaging with the deeper journey may, although by no means always, but it may bring difficult and complex feelings to the surface. So if you don't feel you're at a place in life where you're able to hold that possibility at the moment, then perhaps wait for a while. There's really no hurry. Everything in its right time. Also, if you're having mental health issues, then more concrete ways of exploring may be helpful right now. And particularly for people dealing with psychosis, I really wouldn't recommend this practice. It's important that we're able to maintain the connection between this world, the concrete world where we have bills to pay, relationships to nurture with all the responsibilities that entails and so on, as well as moving in the mythic space. We can't just launch off into dream space forever. That is literally madness. But for most of us, that's not a risk. For most of us, it's very easy to stay anchored and grounded in this world where we have to decide what to cook for dinner and make sure we've got enough milk in the fridge for our morning cup of tea. The difficulty is usually for us accessing the mythic space rather than getting stuck in it. Robert Macfarlane, in his remarkable book, The Old Ways, talks about the Celtic tradition of a wonder voyage. These were journeys undertaken by monks and soul adventurers who would set sail into the unknown and return with amazing tales that wove a path between real and imagined geographies. This is a realm of myth and poetry that can hold richer and more subtle truths than simple matter-of-fact measurements. It holds feelings, energetic connections, and all the wild ways of the human psyche. Talking with a friend the other day, he said this sounds like an act of active imagination, taking our experience of the world in all its sensual glory and allowing our imaginations to play with and unfurl from that grounded experience rather than simply floating away into the ether. In the previous video, I spoke about communicating with the land, and this is a practice that takes that idea a few steps further. Unlike meditation practices, which are many and varied, but often open up a space of kind of non-thinking detachment, simply being with the breath, for example, a practice I would really recommend, by the way. This is an active contemplation. Our minds and hearts are at work and engaged with the process. And you can begin this anywhere, lying in bed, sitting somewhere comfortable, or out in the world somewhere peaceful, or even, sitting at your desk in the office. Just make sure you won't be disturbed for the duration of the practice. And that could be around 15 minutes or longer or shorter if that feels better to you. You can either sit or lie there in silence, or listen to meditation music, or, and I find this particularly helpful, listen to a track of shamanic drumming. This has a rhythm that helps to move our brains into the best state to engage in active contemplation. In fact, this is really a rudimentary shamanic journeying technique, although there are also similar practices in active contemplation in plenty of other spiritualities too. For example, some of the Ignatian exercises in the Christian mystic tradition have a way of engaging this very same active imagination. And I do find the points of resonance and dissonance between these approaches really interesting, but that's not what we're exploring here today. So I'll describe this way of journeying now, but we'll also post another video that you can listen to as a guided contemplation in your own time and space, if that's helpful to you. And speaking of your own time, I'd be so grateful if you could use a little bit of that and like and subscribe to this channel. I'm not sponsored or anything like that, just passionate about sharing this stuff with the world. And these little things, they really help. So if you're able to do that, thank you so much. So to begin, settle down in your space where you won't be disturbed for the duration of the journey. It can be helpful to close your eyes or even put a scarf or mask over your eyes, but do whatever feels comfortable for you. Take a few nice long breaths. Settle into your body and the moment. Any thoughts, external distractions running around your head, like what am I going to have for lunch and so on, simply lay them to one side for these few minutes. They'll be there to pick up again at the end of the practice if you need them. And then, when you're ready, in your imagination, call to mind a place that you know. It may be somewhere special to you that holds significant meaning, but somewhere that has a gateway, a hole in the ground, in the roots of a tree maybe, a cave. It doesn't have to be big enough for you to fit through. We're in the imaginal realm now, so you can move in whatever manner you choose. We could even change our height and size if we need to. And then take a breath and step into the portal hole, following it down deep into the earth where you're held safe. It may feel like walking through a cave or swimming through an underground river. Allow your imagination to take flight. But remember, in all of this experience, you are perfectly safe. Nothing can harm you here. When it feels right, imagine this space opening out. It may be a large cavern or a forest clearing. There's a fire in the center of the space, warm and comforting. Come, sit by the fire in this safe soul sanctuary and invite someone to join you. You could invite a wise teacher whose teaching you've found helpful, an animal whose energy you enjoy. If you have roots in a particular religion, you might want to imagine yourself with a wise, loving person from your own tradition, Jesus or Mary perhaps, the Buddha, and so on. The only stipulation I'd make is that it needs to be someone you trust. And then, as you imagine them there, using all of your senses, the sound, smell, textures of the ground, the warmth of the fire, allow the scene to unfold. At some point in this journey, you may notice a shift from you having to actively imagine something happening to the imaginal space taking on a life of its own. Like a dream, things begin to happen that take you by surprise. Don't worry if this doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. However things flow, this is simply a way to access the deep inner wisdom that we all hold inside of us, but is so often hidden. So, spend some time with this person or being. You may want to simply sit quietly in the peaceful space and enjoy their loving presence. You may want to ask them a question or have a conversation. Maybe they will ask you a question or give you a gift. Just allow the story to unfold. If it feels like nothing is happening, then allow that as well. Time spent in this gentle space is always good for us, even if it feels as if nothing profound is going on. Finally, when you feel ready, say thank you to the person you are spending time with and slowly come back to the sensations of your body. You may want to retrace your steps up, back out of the portal and follow that path if you like. You can do that, but there's no need to. Just bringing your attention back to the sensations of your body will work fine. Wiggling your toes and fingers, stretching and moving your arms, walking around a little, drinking a cup of tea, always a good thing to do. When you're back, it can be helpful to write down what you've experienced so that you can ponder and reflect on what happened. It needn't be very dramatic, but I do often find people surprised by how the life of that imaginal dream space offers some wonderful healing and wisdom. I was facilitating a similar kind of contemplative reflection in the midst of one of my art exhibitions last year in London. And someone said to me afterwards that they had never done anything like it before. And actually they weren't really expecting anything to happen, but that something shifted in the middle of the journey and they felt their heart come alive and begin telling them things they really needed to hear. But, cigar, cigar, as they say here in Greece, slowly, slowly. There's no rush. And the more we practice these things, the more we practice these techniques, the more we find ourselves able to navigate and explore that space. Now, this painting expresses my experience of doing a journey using just this kind of pattern. It was at a pool in the forest on a footpath towards the old ruined fortress town. When the rains have been, then the pool fills up crystal clear and forms an almost perfect circle with mossy tree roots twisting their way over rocks into the water. I used the pool as a gateway and entered into that portal where I met these three nymphs who seemed to emerge from the three trees that stand over the pool. They were playful and kind, and we had a beautiful interaction. And this is my painting of that moment. Are they real or just a figment of my imagination? It doesn't really matter. This is a way to enter into that mythic dream space where we are able to access the deep wisdom of our soul, whilst also being grounded in the land, somewhere concrete and real. And this deep soul wisdom is always on our side, always gently guiding us down the most life-giving path for us. Why not give it a try? And you may find, like little Max as he went on his adventure to where the wild things are, that when you get back to your room, things feel different and new ideas and possibilities have opened up for you. And the rut might just feel a little less stuck. As I said, I'll post another video that you can use as a guided contemplation if you'd find that helpful. And please do send me a message or comment with any experiences that emerge from this practice for you. Or if you have any questions, I'll be really happy to explore them with you. If a one-to-one video call or conversation would be helpful as you explore these soul spaces, then I have over 15 years of experience accompanying people on their spiritual journeys. So drop me a message and we can discuss what might work for you in your life. Also, if you'd be interested in having your personal story and experience expressed in a piece of art, a soul portrait, then I'd be really happy to work with you. Soul portraits are a way to discover the art of your deepest self that grows from me gently listening to your story, and I create them in dialogue with you. When people ask me to make a soul portrait for them, we work together to create a unique artwork. It might be a picture, painting like these forest nymphs, or it might be an object that will be with you for the rest of your life as a beacon, a guide, a celebration, a commemoration, or a symbol of something that's important to you. If that's something that interests you, drop me a message. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a peaceful and gentle day. And I'll be here again at the same time next week for more journeys with art, soul, and landscape. Lots of love.